I'm Julie Alexandria.
And I'm Jennifer Mercedes.
Between the two of us, we have over 2 decades of experience working in professional sports.
We're telling the stories of women who are at the top of their game in sports and business.
Welcome
to the locker room.
So sports has seemingly long been omitted from having to address issues of race, gender, and sexism. The moment is over, though. Whatever shield was in place to protect against having those uncomfortable conversations, we're having them, and we're having them now. It's long overdue. And to join us in on that conversation is Shakeia Taylor, baseball writer extraordinaire, winner of numerous awards this past year, including the Sabre Award and amongst many others. Congratulations, Shakeia, first of all, on the awards. So thank you for being here with us.
Thank you. Thank you both for having me. This is really awesome to be invited.
Since the beginning, Vida Baseball, we've been tying baseball to social issues. And one of the things that we want to talk about is, one of the things that you talk about is the impact that communities of color face. Your writing connects the dots in ways that traditional baseball frowns upon. What's informed your editorial lens?
I mean, I feel like the most obvious thing is my identities. As a Black woman, that's kind of first and foremost who I speak for, what I speak as. But then, I don't put those two separate. I am both Black and a woman at the same time equally. But then also, I think it's important that people of color, that our voices are heard, that our history is told. So frequently in baseball media in particular, we kind of gloss over the past and we just talk about today, and we can't have a conversation about today without going over the past. So I'm informed by who I am, the communities I'm a part of, the communities I'm in tangent to. All of those things matter to me, and I think we can't have anything without our identities.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we hear so often, I'm sure you've encountered it on a few occasions, is stick to sports. And I have many emotions when it comes to that. But as we sort of see the birth of the socially conscious athlete, whether it be kneeling, opposing racist team names, calling out racist school fight songs. We saw that at University of Texas just last week. Leagues supporting civil rights initiatives. Are fans, are writers, are leagues ready to embrace a socially conscious athlete?
I don't think they are, but who cares at the same time? I think what's happening is super important. And if we wait for everyone to be ready, we'll never have any progress. So if they aren't, oh well.
Now, speaking about that socially conscious athlete, you notably wrote an article about Tim Anderson's treatment after he was hit by a ball and his reaction to that. Now we have Miles Leonard from the NBA. He had a racial slur, and it seems to me that he's being treated differently. Are you surprised by that? And what does that say about the world that we continue to live in?
Well, I want to first say Tim Anderson using the N-word as a Black person, it got so much of a strong response from non-Black people in the situation because it requires some nuance to understand. Like, I know no one wants to say, some of us can't say certain things, but that's just the way it is. It's just the society we live in. And with Myers Leonard, he
didn't know what it meant.
A lie. I believe he knew what it meant simply because I heard the clip. The context in which he used it lets you know he said it on purpose. He said it with intention, and all of those things matter. And I do think that he's going to get treated rather kindly from establishment and institution. Individuals, of course, are going to be outraged, and rightfully so. What he said was absolutely just gross. We don't talk like that. And he'll be treated as if he's young it's a mistake. I've already seen it happening on social media. Like people have already started saying that for a certain generation of young white men, that's the way they talk.
Mhm.
And I think we have to get out of this idea that racism is a phase. Anti-Semitism is a phase. It's not. It's gross. It's gross if you're 36, 66. Always wrong.
And that's not,
Absolutely.
and that's not to say that I'm sorry, Julie, I just wanted to say, it's not to say that you can't grow from it, right? Like I think I 100% believe people can grow and learn, but you have to, the first thing you got to do is admit it. And I think that
Yep.
that's been the issue all along is people don't want to actually admit that the racism still exists.
I think it's tough for people to acknowledge that things that they believe or things that they say are in fact racist. Um, it's one of those things where acknowledgement is clearly the first step, but no one wants to say it. It's almost racists feel worse about being called on it than by their own about their own actions.
I'm wondering, as a journalist, so oftentimes, and I don't want to specify female journalist, male journalist, gender specific here, but I think sometimes I know as a female reporter in working in professional sports, we have to compromise sometimes. And maybe there's a story that we want to go after, but they say, but there's a new hot dog stand out in the outfield. Why don't you cover that? And so I'm wondering in your career, have you had to make compromises based on, maybe it's based on who you are, maybe it's based on how you're perceived, maybe it's based on who you're writing for. Have you had to make any compromises in the past?
Um, I haven't been writing super, super long, so I don't have many instances. I would say that I have not had to compromise yet. Um, I'm positive it's coming. As more people start to read what I'm writing and more opportunities start to come up. But so far, I almost feel like who I am is a part of what I write. And asking me to compromise may also be asking me to compromise the integrity of the work, simply because I focus so heavily on race and culture and gender. And if you ask me to kind of pull back on those things, then there's a little bit of dishonesty there. But so far, no, but I do think it is absolutely coming. I do have moments where I'll be writing and I'll say something that's a little strong, and I'll personally be like, I should probably either soften this, rephrase it, or take it out. Not because I don't believe it, but because some things just don't hit properly with certain audiences, and I become the villain.
But do you think to that point, and Julie and I had talked about this regarding other topics, but us us as women, we always have that second thought, right? And question what we're saying because one, especially as black women and women of color, you don't want to be that stereotypical mad, angry black woman.
Hmm.
And then you also don't want to be the emotional woman, and you don't want to be seen as a victim. So, I mean, will we ever get to a place? And I think it's on us, and it's a culture thing, where we as women don't have to second guess what it is that we are trying to say.
I think now, just do it now. A thing that I have learned and embraced in work and my personal life is sometimes I don't soften. I think, okay, men don't have to do this. Men don't have to pull themselves back. They don't apologize. They don't say, my apologies for being delayed in responding to you. They just answer the email. And so what I do, I say this to my girlfriends all the time. And as soon as I say it, you're going to think hard about it too. I say, stop apologizing. What are you apologizing for? Stop
Mhm.
saying you're sorry. That is a thing that women, we instinctively do. We apologize for being ourselves, for speaking our mind. And no more. Today, we stop. If you start typing an email and you say you're sorry, delete it.
You know what's so funny too, and I don't want to get off topic, but I mean, I was emailing a team and a few days ago, and I was emailing the team just because I hadn't been getting their press releases, and I was having trouble wording the email because I was being very direct. I was just like, hey guys, I haven't gotten your emails. What's up? Like, I think maybe they're going in my junk mail or whatever, but can you please add my other email? And I literally, I mean, it's not even a big deal, but I asked one of my other colleagues who's a man, I was like, does this sound too direct? He was like, no, it's to the point. And I'm just like, cut, like, why would I even, question like what I'm saying? Like, because I get emails like that from the men all the time. They're just plain emails like, hey, can you do that? Like, and so us as women, I 100% I agree, Shakeia, we have to change that mentality of always having to apologize or always having to be nice and prim and proper. 100% agree. One thing also that I wanted to touch on, this past year, 2020, has been, I think, a year of purpose. And I think that everything happens for a reason. I believe that I'm a big believer that COVID and George Floyd's death happened for a reason. It had to happen, right? It was a moment that had to happen. Had COVID not been a part of our lives last year, I don't think the George Floyd moment would have been as impactful as it has been, because people had to sit there and actually watch, right? There was nothing else to see. How do you think that moment and the moments that we have been living in since has shifted the culture in sports?
I think, well, I agree with you. I think having to stop everything, having to pause everything was a good thing. The reason why we had to do it was absolutely awful. We lost so many people in this last year, but the pause was important. I think maybe a year or two ago, I was on a podcast and I was advocating that we take a year off sports. I had no idea that we were going to have a pandemic. I hope that I did not speak that into existence, but I kept saying, we need a year off sports because sports mirror society. Every single problem happening in society is happening in whatever sport you follow. You may not hear about it, but it's happening. We have domestic violence in MLB, sexual harassment in MLB. We had a cheating scandal in MLB. These are all things that are also happening in real life, but because it's in, a 30 team sort of window or mirror, it feels stronger. And so I think the importance of last year is we got time. We got time to look at the problems. Things were exposed. It was one of those, like, when the grass is cut, the snakes will show moments. And I don't think anything changes until we continue to expose problems. I think that pause was good. I think we should be pausing again, to be honest. But I think it was a good thing. I think people are paying attention. I think we have to also consider that movements don't happen in short periods of time. Like, people try to quantify the civil rights movement, but in reality, we're still in it. So I think the pause was great. More pauses in life for all of us, to be quite honest.
I love that. I love that. And what you said about it is a microcosm in a way where with these 30 teams. And that's the thing, though, is that the snakes continue to be exposed. Will we ever catch up? I mean, at this point, it just seems like one scandal after another. If it's not cheating, it's something else. How do you even go about addressing all of this when it comes to a league, an entity like MLB?
Well, I think one of the things that we can't do is continue to parrot hire women. Hire women, hire women. Okay, there are women working. That doesn't stop powerful men. And it shouldn't be the responsibility of women to out these men, to have to share their stories. A thing that this has brought about is a lot of trauma sharing. And I'm not against people necessarily telling what happened to them, but I do wonder how deep we get in the weeds with the trauma sharing and we don't get to the problem solving. And so some of that is, this is, MLB is, there's a ton of men. And when you have a lot of men who have been allowed to do whatever they want for decades, this isn't a new problem. This is a decades long situation. And on the one hand, I want to say you should clean house, right? A Mickey Callaway should not have a job, and he should not be able to get another job. But privilege is what it is. And um, I don't know the answers other than people need to be fired. Men need to be held accountable for themselves. The whisper network can only get us so far, right? Like we can discuss it amongst ourselves that these things are happening that are issues, but we need men to step up, to do something, to say, hey, you know what? You are a disgusting human being and you don't belong here. I understand there are issues involved legally with sharing why someone was fired from a position. Like sometimes that's the case because we do have to understand that baseball teams are businesses. So there are laws in place that I think prevent people from maybe sharing why someone was canned, but they should still be fired. Like you may not be able to fully prevent them from getting to the next team, but you can keep them off of yours. And that's where we start. We start with addressing systemic issues, patriarchy, women not being put in jobs, but the onus is on men. The same way the onus of solving racism is on racists, unfortunately, it's on men to fix this. It's not on anyone else.
I agree, Shakeia, with what you're saying. Like, it shouldn't be women's responsibility to educate you on that. As a man, if you have friends and your mom or your sister, and you want to ask, is this proper? Is this okay? I think that's fine. I think that's okay, right? Like, and I believe that means that you are willing to grow, and you definitely don't want to be an ass. I'm sorry I said the word, but I think you know what I mean? You don't want to be insensitive to other women. So I 100% agree. You got to address the root of the issue. How do you do that? I don't know.
I mean, it just all sounds tough, right? Like a lot of this is about power. It's men with power, and then none of these incidents are one-offs. What we have found is if he's harassed one person, he's harassed five, right? Like that's kind of how it seems to go. Because these aren't new things. Men don't just pick up harassing women when they're 30. Like this is a thing that they've tried in various ways and gotten away with for years. Think about it. Like when you're a teenager and boys say things to young girls, and we're taught boys will be boys. He probably likes you. That's why he's doing that. And now we're like, actually, no, that's harassment. Like, I don't care if you like me, you're bothering me. And I said no. And there's just so many different ways that could go. We could ask people, stop teaching your daughters not to get raped and teach your sons not to rape. We could say, teach your sons that no is an answer. It is a full sentence. Teach your sons that nobody wants a picture of your private parts. Keep that to yourself. Like a lot of this stuff is just general manners that men get to skip over. They get to just skip over it because they're male. And I mean, I know a lot of women have said like they don't feel comfortable saying something back. I am not one of those people. I will cuss you out. I think we also need to empower more women to beat these guys up, cuss them out, like let them know that you are not the person. And again, I'm not trying to say that victims should do things. I'm saying me and anyone else who feels comfortable, say something. I threaten guys. I know people are like, wow, Shakeia, you're really threatening people, but I will threaten you. If I feel like you are threatening my person, making me uncomfortable, I say something. I protect myself. And there's just so many different things that could be done. I think we empower women, but we also suppress some of the power that men have.
Before we let you go, I do want to touch on this year that you have had. You've written some amazing articles and have received the recognition that you solely deserved. How has that been for you? Like, just describe to me, because I know 2020 has been crazy and it's been difficult, but for you to be recognized in such a way for your talent, your skills, but for your words and what they mean to people. I mean, that article on F. Manley, you're bringing up somebody, right, who people in baseball may not really know, right? Because you only know Major League Baseball, but we don't really talk about the Negro Leagues, the executives in the Negro Leagues, and who really impacted it the way that we should. And you've brought that along. So can you describe to me just how that has all been for you?
It's been wild. It's been wild. It's been a lot of fun. I said at the end of 2020, I tweeted a thread of articles that I'd written, and in my haste, I forgot, I think, one or two. But in that thread, I was just like, I think writing saved me in the last year. Being able to write to the causes, being able to write to what was happening and connect people to our history, it was important to me. When I wrote Dear Jackie, which to me is probably the most important thing I have written so far, because Jackie Robinson means a lot to a lot of people in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And his memory has been manipulated by a lot of people in a lot of different ways. And at the time that I wrote it, it was July. And, MLB moved Jackie Robinson Day last year to August. So I had some time to just move words around. And one of the things that was sticking with me was I was just angry. Every day I was angry. And I'm not an emotional person, I'm not a crier. And I found myself watching TV and just like feeling myself wanting to cry because everything in the world was, things were on fire. People were being killed. I'm seeing children protesting on my TV. And all I could do was use my pen. And so for me, that's what this past year has been. Yeah, I got an award and I got top 10 honors in something else, but I use my pen to advance a cause. I use my pen to speak to the history of Black Americans in this country, of people of color and things that we face in this country. So the accolades and all that are good. It's fun. I like when people read what I write and people love what I write. But ultimately for me, it's about us. It's about using the pen to help, to be an activist, really. I know we tend to view activism as being out in the streets, but there's so many different ways. And Dear Jackie was that for me. And I think that's what last year was about. And I'm hoping to continue it into this year. I hope that I can keep writing pieces that resonate with people here and here, because that's what I do it for. If you walk away from something I wrote and you didn't learn something, what am I doing? Like, so this past year has been overwhelming. It's been great. I've read so much. I I have so much to share in this coming year too. So I hope everybody is ready to hang out with me.
We are ready to hang out with you, Shakeia. I knew you would not disappoint. This has been an amazing conversation. I mean, we could go on for hours, and the only reason I'm going to go is because I know you got work. But thank you so much for doing this. I'm serious. I can't wait to have you back on.
No problem. Let me know whenever.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. This has been a segment, celebrating women of color. Shakeia Taylor, follow her, Curly Fro. You will not be disappointed, all right? She tweets from everything that's going on in the world to carrot cake, all right? Thank you so much, guys.
I can just do this job and be liked, or I can do this job and make sure I'm changing the way things are done here so that the next woman that comes along has a better experience.